Hello there, you're watching All 24 News, World News Program with me, Karim Zachary, and these are your headlines. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, stated that Algeria had legal standing in Libya and that the only option is to hold elections while armed groups clashed rock western Libya. Britain's pound plunged to an all-time low against the dollar as investors fret over a new budget. Also in our news, leaders of Brothers of Italy, Giorgia Meloni has claimed victory in general election. Also coming up, parents and classmates of the 43 disappeared students from Ayotzinapa held a protest in the center of Mexico City. Hello again and welcome to the program. First, in our topical news, Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune stated that Algeria had legal standing in Libya and that the only option is to hold elections. Sofian Kinturi.
The Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune claimed that Algeria is with the international legitimacy in Libya, as long as legitimacy of the fund is absent. The Algerian President emphasized that Abdelhamid Dbeiba's administration is the internationally recognized Libyan government in speech he delivered while overseeing the opening of the government's meeting with governors in Algiers on Saturday.
احنا مع الشرعية ما دام ما فيه شرعية انتخابية شرعية تاع الصندوق نكتفي في هذا الوقت بالشرعية الدولية اللي تعين من طرف مجلس الأمن أو من مندوب من طرف مجلس الأمن احنا هذاك هو اللي نمشي معاه قلناها ونزيد نكررها بصفة رسمية باسم الدولة الجزائرية ما فيش حل بالنسبة لليبيا سوى إرجاع الصوت للشعب الليبي.
The decade-long state of chaos in North Africa was once again rocked by violence. In the western town of Zawiya, where armed groups, like in many other towns and cities in oil-rich Libya, are vying for influence, fighting broke out between rival militias on Sunday. Monday witnessed a continuation of militia fighting that broke out over the weekend in western Libya and claimed the lives of at least 5 people, including a 10-year-old girl. The Health Ministry's emergency service reported that in addition to 5 civilian fatalities, at least 13 additional civilians suffered injuries during the clashes.
Saudi Minister of Foreign Affairs Prince Faisal bin Farhan confirmed the kingdom's commitment to the UN Charter and its continuous support for the principles of international legitimacy aimed at maintaining international peace and security. The minister stressed the kingdom's support for the Libyan call for a complete departure of foreign forces, foreign fighters and mercenaries from Libya without any delay.
The international community is also fighting terrorism and extremism. We must continue to work relentlessly to address this scourge, which is affecting our region. The international community must show itself firm with states that supports terrorism and extremism, and that attempt to use their extremist ideology to expand and to destroy. The kingdom is continuing its efforts for progress and development, to protect the future of our population and strengthen the abilities of men and women to innovate and to be open to dialogue and tolerance.
To UK now, Britain's pound plunged to an all-time low against the dollar as investors fret over new budget spending from London that could spend public finances in a country that may already be in recession. The Bank of England, which had raised its rate by 0.50 percentage point to 2.25% on Thursday, may need to meet urgently to raise it again. The markets now believe that the rate could rise to 4.9% by the end of the year. Still in Europe, leader of Brothers of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, has claimed victory in general election that looks set to become Italy's first woman prime minister at the head of its most right-wing government since World War II. Zahra Farjani reports.
Far-right leader Giorgia Meloni seems set to become Italy's first female prime minister after the coalition formed by her Brothers of Italy party, Lega and Forza Italia, appears to have won an absolute majority in the general elections on Sunday, according to projections. Preliminary results put the alliance of far-right parties, led by Meloni's Brothers of Italy party, on track to win at least 44% of the vote, according to the Italian Interior Ministry. Addressing the media and supporters in early hours of Monday morning, Meloni considered the night as pride and redemption.
From what we can see in the first projections, we can say that the Italians have sent a clear message in favor of right-wing government led by Fratelli d'Italia. If we are called to govern this nation, we will do so for all Italians. We will do so with the aim of uniting people, of valuing what unites them rather than what divides them.
Meloni has sought to send reassuring messages, but Italians all around the country had mixed reactions over the right-wing leader's expected victory.
She has to prove that she can live up to the role, and she has to prove that she can represent all Italians, both those who vote for the right-wing parties, but especially those who did not vote for the right parties.
Final results are expected later Monday. However, it might take weeks for a new government to be formed. The coalition's expected victory raises questions about the country's alliances in Europe as the continent enters a winter likely dominated by high energy prices.
To some natural disasters news now. 5 rescuers were killed in the Philippines after they were sent to a flooded village during a powerful typhoon, authorities said Monday, without releasing details on the cause of death. Super Typhoon Nuru slammed into the Philippines Sunday, battering the heavily populated main island of Luzon, where strong winds and heavy rain that have forced thousands of people to flee their homes. Canada sent military to help clear the devastation after Fiona hurricane left hundreds of thousands of people without power. Defense Minister Anita Anand claimed that Canadian troops would help remove fallen trees, restore transport links, and do whatever else is required for as long as it takes. And in a different development, a gunman has opened fire at school in central Russia, killing at least 13 people and injuring others, Russian officials said. Victims include 7 children at the school of about 1,000 pupils in the city of Izhevsk. The gunman has reportedly killed himself, and the motive is still unclear. Emergency officials are at the scene. Russian media have posted videos which appear to show panic inside the building where the shooting took place. The US has warned Russia of catastrophic consequences if it launches a nuclear attack on Ukraine. President Joe Biden's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said Sunday, speaking on ABC's This Week show, Russia promised protection to Ukrainian regions it might annex following widely criticized referenda. Citizens in 4 regions of Ukraine were voting for a 4th day on Monday in the Russian-organized referenda that Kyiv and the West have branded a sham. They say the outcomers are predetermined, and even countries with close ties to Moscow, such as Serbia and Kazakhstan, say they will not recognize the results. To a different matter now, the Russian mobilization is sparking new protests on Sunday across the nation. Over 100 people were reportedly obstructing a highway in Dagestan, which is one of Russia's less developed regions in the North Caucasus. Local police reportedly fired warning shots into the air in an effort to disperse the protest, according to Russian media.
We are not scared. It's fine. If a draft order arrives, we will go. If it doesn't, we won't.
You know what I want to say to Britain? Stop giving Ukraine lethal weapons. Stop.
The President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, has signed an agreement with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz that covers accelerating energy security and industrial growth. Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, ADNOC, signed the agreement to supply liquefied natural gas to German utility RWE to face the energy crisis. In turn, ambassadors of European Union member states have been invited to a meeting of the bloc's crisis response working group on Monday to discuss concerns about an escalation of the war in Ukraine.
It's good that progress is being made here and that there are signs that our country is now able to supply itself with gas. But it is also important to see that at the same time, there are perspectives for the longer-term future, where we are concerned with operating in CO2 neutral way and advancing hydrogen projects.
A large protest rally against the holding of a state funeral for former Prime Minister Abe Shinzo in Tokyo. The move came amid the decision to hold a funeral, being made by the Kishida cabinet without the input of the Diet nor that of the public.
While many people are still struggling financially due to the pandemic, it is outrageous to use public funds. Over 1.6 billion yen to arrange a state funeral for Abe. I think it shouldn't be accepted. We must not remain silent. That's why I'm here.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol on Monday, September 26, called media reports on a hot mic incident untrue after that was caught, cursing following a brief chat with US President Joe Biden in New York last week.
The alliance is essential in order to protect our people's life and safety. I'd like to say that damaging the alliance with the reports that are different from the fact puts the people at great risk. I think what really happened should be more clearly revealed.
Hundreds of people are crossing the border between Venezuela and Colombia on foot as the two countries open their land and air borders after being partially closed in 2015 and completely closed in 2019 after the severance of diplomatic relations between the two countries. People have expressed their hope that the reopening of the countries' shared border to cargo transport will bring in much-needed commerce to the region.
I hope that what is going to be done now in this reopening is actually implemented and not just words of pure television. Things are actually implemented as they should be.
To Mexico now. Parents and classmates of the 43 disappeared students from Ayotzinapa held a protest in the center of Mexico City in which they asked for justice for the case that celebrates its 8th anniversary today. José Burkan.
8 years after what happened the night of September 26, 2014, the parents of 43 disappeared students reaffirmed their demands for the Mexican authorities to reveal the truth. According to the official investigation in force so far, the 43 young people were arrested by the local police in collusion with the Guerreros Unidos gang and then shot and buried in a landfill for reasons that remains unclear. Only the remains of 3 of them could be identified.
It is disturbing to say that to this day, we know nothing about our children. It hurts us to the bottom of our hearts that we don't know where our children are. That's why we're here, leaving our families and our homes, leaving everything, our work to come here, to demonstrate that we want the truth. Where are our children? We can't allow more injustice, more impunity.
Demonstrations also took place in the Hemicidio Ajuarez, in the center of the city. Several buses carrying parents and fellow students from the rural school in Ayotzinapa and others arrived at the scene. During a press conference, David Fernandez, a member of the Truth Commission, said that the commission have found credible evidence that military camp number 1 was the scene of crimes against humanity.
We found credible evidence that Army Camp Number 1 was the site of crimes against humanity and that it was the site of gross human rights violations.
The official report published in mid-August by the Ayotzinapa Truth Commission set up by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, estimated that Mexican soldiers had a share of responsibility in this crime, one of the worst cases of human rights violations in Mexico, where there are some 100,000 missing.
Hundreds of Iranians living in France and gathered in Paris on Sunday to protest against the government's crackdown on protests sparked by the death of Amini. French police used tear gas and employed anti-riot tactics to prevent hundreds of people protesting in the capital from marching. In London, police said they made 12 arrests and 5 officers were seriously injured as demonstrators tried to break through barriers protecting Iran's UK embassy. Still in Iran, Iran's foreign ministry said Monday that the US attempts to violate Iran's sovereignty against the backdrop of protest will not go unanswered, while hundreds of protesters gathered in the Iranian capital on Sunday to show support for the government and security forces amid nationwide protests that started following the death of Amini. Protests over Amini's death had spread across at least 46 cities, towns, and villages in Iran and in many countries across the world. And for more international news, let's follow this report.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will discuss a partnership on Taiwan security issues as Washington welcomes Japan's increased military strength and security role. Harris is set to attend former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's funeral on Tuesday after holding talks with Kishida on Monday.
Cross-border freight train operations between North Korea and China has resumed, ending a 5-month suspension to limit the spread of the COVID-19. The Chinese Foreign Ministry confirmed that China and North Korea had decided to resume cross-border freight train traffic.
At least 25 people were killed and dozens were missing after a boat packed with Hindu devotees sank on Sunday in Bangladesh. According to the passengers, more than 70 people had been on the boat, which sank in the Karatoya River, and 20 people were still missing while some of the passengers managed to swim ashore or were rescued.
Swiss voters were on track on Sunday to reject a proposal to ban factory farming. Initial results showed in a referendum on whether the wealthy country's strict animal welfare laws need to be tightened yet further. The government recommended against the proposal, saying such changes would breach trade accords, increase investment and opioid costs, and drive food prices higher.
Thousands of people rallied in the Spanish capital, Madrid, against the country's bullfighting tradition. Animal lovers, representatives of animal rights groups, and members of Spain's Animal Lover or Lovers Party against the abuse of animals held up tissues in front of Las Ventas, one of the largest bullfighting rings in the world, demanding that bullfighting be banned nationwide.
Only 9 countries in the world have this type of festivities that are responsible for mistreating animals and killing them. And what we are asking for is to eradicate it once and for all. Society no longer consumes this violence.
Well, we came because I'm a vet, and I understand that the torture and mistreatment of animals should be abolished. Our association claims the end of bullfighting, using scientific arguments. Our science says that these animals suffer enormously.
All right, time for a reminder of our top stories. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, stated that Algeria had legal standing in Libya and that the only option is to hold elections. Britain's pound is to plunge to an all-time low against the dollar as investors fret over new budget. Leader of the Brothers of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, has claimed victory in general election. And finally, you watch parents and classmates of the 43 disappeared students from Ayotzinapa held a protest in the center of Mexico City. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, our news comes to a close. Thank you for watching. But don't forget to follow more stories on our social media platforms. Bye for now.